Okay, so we're really excited to finally be here. We've been working on this meeting for quite a while, and it has evolved quite a bit, as those of you who have been on many phone calls know. So I thought I would just give you a really brief overview of what the thinking was about this meeting, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So as I think we would all agree, in environmental health sciences as well as many other biological domains, data has changed quite a lot recently. So often referred to as the 3 Vs, we have huge volumes of data now where we used to not, and the rate at which that data is increasing is quite rapid. And on top of all that, we have a huge variety of data that's being integrated to answer particular questions. And so I think this trend towards interdisciplinary work is affecting all of these areas, and particularly in terms of data and thinking about how we can bring these data from disciplines that maybe previously didn't talk to each other as much as they do now. And so that's raising a lot of opportunities, but a lot of challenges as well. So this workshop is going to focus on the variety aspect of those 3 Vs. And really, I think the aim is to think about trying to start a conversation, cross-disciplinary conversation, that's going to talk about what are the opportunities for environmental health sciences, what are the data sets that really we should be thinking about integrating so that we can ask more complex and more cross-discipline questions, and then looking to other domains. So environmental health sciences, I think, is maybe coming to this table a little bit late in the game in terms of thinking about big data and thinking about integrating the data. And so are there other areas of biology that have already started tackling these challenges? And can we learn from them and think about this in sort of a strategic way so that we don't necessarily make some of the same mistakes that may have been made before, or just facilitate that transition for us. And so there are a lot of caveats to this meeting too. So a lot of issues came up as we were talking about this. We initially had a focus on big data and realized, well, nobody's really challenged necessarily by generating the data anymore. We really need to think about how to put it together. But there are a lot of issues with data, right? There are privacy issues, there are sharing issues, there's issues of storage just by virtue of size. And we've sort of taken that off the table. And in talking to Titus Brown during one of our first conversations, he said, you're taking off all the controversial issues. And so that may be, and I think some of these points will come up in various people's talks, but I'd really like to try to keep it with a practical focus. So what can we really do to move environmental health science data integration forward? So there are 4 sessions that we're going to sort of organize this meeting in. The first one is a short session where we're going to have 2 very different examples where we can look and sort of be inspired by all the biology that can come out of integration of heterogeneous data. The second session is also going to highlight features of projects that have undertaken this heterogeneous data integration challenge, but the focus of this session is going to be more on what was the approach that was taken in these initiatives. What were the challenges that were particularly faced in those particular projects? What have we learned? What kinds of questions are now able to be answered, or what remains to be answered? What could be done differently? So really a more practical lessons learned kind of approach. The third session is going to then sort of be grounded. So in that session too, a lot of those examples you'll see are not particularly environmental health focused, and that's okay. The third session is going to be sort of bringing it back to environmental health. We're going to focus on particular data streams that we as a planning group thought were sort of low-hanging fruit, in the sense that there's data there, there's huge opportunity for asking really interesting questions if these data sets are put together. And there are, again, lots of caveats to this session. We could not be comprehensive in terms of including all the possible data streams. So we apologize up front for those that were left out of that. And then finally, the last session tomorrow will involve a lot of federal funding agencies and groups that are sort of initiating new big data-oriented programs and thinking about a conversation that maybe we can all have after we've looked at some of these projects, we've thought about environmental health science. There's a lot of strategic planning going on at places like EPA and NIEHS in this domain, and so maybe by virtue of bringing together a lot of people from these different realms, we can help to inform that process differently. So this is the planning group. I won't read through all the names, but I do want to personally thank everybody for a lot of phone calls and a lot of really great conversations and ideas. And a big thanks to the NAS staff, which if you've ever worked with them during a meeting planning, you will know that they do a phenomenal job and work very, very hard. And just a word about the standing committee. So this workshop is part of a series of 3 to 4 workshops that occur every year that are put together by this particular committee, which is called the Emerging Science for Environmental Health Decisions. And the committee is listed here, and there's a website there if you want to get some more information about the individuals on that. The charge for this particular group, which as I understand it is a little bit different than some of the other NAS committees, is that it really is intended to facilitate conversations among government, academics, and the community at large about emerging issues in environmental health. And the purpose is not to develop sort of consensus conclusions or formal recommendations to any particular agencies, but really, as I've seen it from the ones that I have attended, very exploratory and looking at cutting edge areas. So in that sense, this particular workshop, I should say, is a little bit of a divergence from that, in that we're not exploring a new area to environmental health sciences in terms of data content, but there really seemed to be a timely need for addressing issues of big data and integration, and so we sort of departed from the typical structure, and this one is a little bit more, I think, on a practical note, looking at how we as a community can work together to deal with some of the challenges that we're facing with respect to data. And then a final note that this particular committee is also sponsored by NIEHS. And then just some administrative issues. A reminder that this meeting is webcasted, and for those who are listening in from the outside, there are mechanisms, I guess, that are clear to them how they can submit questions, and we'll do our best to try to address those as we go through. And the slides and the webcast will also be put on the web, so if you need to look at it or want to after the fact, you can. And there will also be a newsletter with highlights, and you can see kind of the flavor of those by some of the ones that are out on the table in the hall. Okay, so with that, I will turn this over to Alan Diri, who is the Director of the Office of Scientific Information Management at NIEHS, for a few opening remarks.